So, one of the things I've been thinking about and I really want to talk about today is forgiveness. And this is why. I remember when I was on the outs with my mom and we weren't speaking for 4 years. And one of the hardest things to know what to do is how to talk to people about this when you're going through this really, really intense stuff. So, if you've ever been through any kind of family alienation or anything like that, and excuse me, I've got a dog in my lap, I'm outside. Les is on a cruise, but we're just doing the best we can today. So, anyway, I remember in these years of going no contact with my mom and how casually people would say things to me like, oh, you just need to forgive her. Oh, you just need to move on. And even if it was somebody I liked who said that to me, even if it was somebody who I knew, kind of cared about me, it didn't matter. Those kinds of comments cut like a knife and would wound me to my absolute soul. Because that person that was standing there saying, oh, just forgive her, it's your mom. There was absolutely no understanding of how this process works, of how forgiveness works, and how somebody really needs to honor their feelings when they feel they've been wounded in really serious ways. So, the idea of somebody just saying to forgive somebody is actually asking you to abandon yourself when you're going through a really, really difficult time. Um, so if you've ever been there where you're in that place of despair or hopelessness or feeling alienated from somebody and you really want to understand how this process works, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, hi, I'm Lindsay from Reach Out Recovery. I have a new book out. It is on pre-sale today. We will talk about that in a few minutes. That is part of why we are talking about forgiveness today. But the big thing is that I think that forgiveness is really misunderstood. Um, and I want to talk about why forgiveness isn't really a good first step, especially when we're healing from deep emotional wounds. So, if you are here, if you are in this community, it's possible that you're carrying pain, you're carrying confusion, conflict, you feel incredibly disappointed in your relationship with your mom or daughter. And you probably have heard over and over, just forgive her or move on, or these simplified ideas that really don't apply to something as complicated as this topic. So let's walk through it together. So the first problem with telling somebody to just forgive is forgiveness is not a magic fix. It really doesn't work that way at all. Especially in relationships with a very layered history when you've had unmet needs or trauma. You may even be able to find forgiveness for somebody for a minute or two here and there, and then wake up the next morning and be angrier than ever. I certainly experienced the gamut of emotions in my family separation. So when somebody says just forgive, it almost feels like somebody is pressuring you to do something that you're really not ready, and it's asking you to abandon the process that you need to go through. So what is it saying? It's sort of saying your pain doesn't matter. It's saying possibly that your feelings are unjustified, and it's ignoring the incredibly important idea that you can't just rush past all the things that have happened and rush into forgiveness. You need understanding and healing and a lot of other things that are going to happen first, and then you can decide to do the work that's around forgiveness. So think about it like this: skipping to forgiveness when you haven't done the work that needs to go in front of it is simply like putting a band-aid on a dirty wound. You haven't cleaned the wound, you haven't disinfected the wound, and you haven't put the neosporin on the wound that's going to help it heal better. So insisting on forgiveness too early can really leave you feeling unseen, invalidated, and also really, really resentful. And I experienced a lot of this. So if you're not supposed to focus on forgiveness, and this can really apply to any relationship, if you're in a breakup, if somebody's hurt you, any kind of relationship stuff that comes down to you feeling hurt by somebody and having to forgive, there's some processes we can do. So here are the healthier steps that you can take before you start thinking about forgiveness. The first is understanding your own story. We talk about self-discovery. It's in both of our books. It's in the mother-daughter book. It's in the mother-daughter healing workbook, because it is so, so important to understand your own story. It's impossible to know what somebody else is thinking or going through unless you've actually considered all of the things that are involved. So understand your own story and what comes in that. What's your past? What have you been through? What are your triggers? What patterns are you carrying on? What messages did you internalize growing up? What kind of work around all of this can you do, from journaling to reflection exercises and even therapy or coaching, anything that can help you peel back the layers? Because knowing your emotional wiring and the narratives you've lived under gives you a lot more choice about what you've experienced. So that's number one. And understanding your own story also means understanding your mom's story or understanding the other person. So you're going through a really bad breakup with somebody. What's that person been through? What are their issues? What's holding them back? It's a lot easier to find compassion for somebody when you understand what their struggles are and what really might be things that they're incapable of doing, right? I used to be so mad at my mom and others for not giving me what I thought I needed. But here's the truth. If they can't give you what you need, that's something that you need to understand. And understanding how they came about who they are will really help you. You know, if you knew that your mom had been abused and her mom had been abused and they never learned any nurturing or healthy stuff, would you feel differently about her? Would you feel a little bit, more compassionate about the woman who raised you if you knew that she had been raised under really difficult circumstances? So that is number one. Understand your story, who you come from, what's happened to you, why you've become the way you are. When I went into recovery and wanted to reconcile with my own mom, it was really because I had done the work to see my own part. So I understood, well, wow, she had some things that held her back, but man, I was difficult. Like, I was a difficult daughter. I had problems, and that probably wasn't the easiest thing to deal with. So that's number one. Number two, self-care, self-care, self-care. I think it's not impossible. You can certainly do all this self-improvement work when you're not in a good way. I certainly have done it. But this kind of information and your ability to learn and retain information is going to come through a lot better when you're in a good place, when you're able to find some moments in peace in the day. And as we all know, when you're in conflict, when you are in family alienation, when you are in these kind of true family crises, it's very, very hard to feel good. And that's where we also need to start. So when we talk about self-care in this kind of recovery, I am not talking about bubble baths and mani-pedis. Although if that makes you feel good, by all means do it. I love hot water. I'll get in hot water whenever I can. It makes me feel better. But it's not the kind of personal development self-care that is really going to carry you through this process. So when I'm talking about self-care, this is safety for yourself. This means whatever you need to do to be physically safe from whatever situation, do it if you are able. This means being emotionally safe and mentally safe. If it means setting boundaries where you say to somebody, I need space, or I won't accept this kind of talk, or even saying something to somebody like, this behavior is off limits for me right now. That is self-care in this kind of recovery. It is standing up for yourself. It is knowing what you deserve, and it is gaining esteem through esteemable acts. So it's very important as you invest in your well-being to think about what kind of self-care is going to help create a really strong foundation for you. Is it therapy? Is it recovery groups? Is it mentoring or coaching? Do you need to learn how to rest? Rest is really, really important. It's easier to learn and retain information when we get enough rest. Or is this the moment that you really need to start reading books on the issues you're experiencing or practices that ground you? I remember there were some things about my personality I didn't understand until a therapist handed me a book that was called The Empath Experience. And suddenly, right there in black and white, I was able to put words to why I felt certain ways sometimes that had been a complete mystery. And once I understood that I was able to internalize other people's feelings and take in other people's energy, that was even more of a reason for me to bring in boundaries, for me to be able to understand, hey, I need limits with people that are draining my energy or making me feel bad, because I really will start to feel it in a very real and authentic way. Next on the list, reconnecting with joy and life. Anybody who's been in an abusive relationship, and raise your hand if you've been in an abusive relationship, because I think many of us who are in recovery at one point or another have had some kind of relationship where we were not treated the way we should have been treated. And whether we knew it or not at the time, what we do in recovery is we acknowledge that it happened and we find ways to bring joy back into our lives. There is nothing tougher about coming to terms with what's happened to you, is making, coming to terms and accepting that you've lost joy. And I know that was true for me. When I was in these terrible family times, when I was in big breakups, I really struggled with finding joy. And if you don't want this to be a hopeless experience, if you want to feel optimistic, if you want to feel motivated to do all of this, it's really important to reconnect with joy and life. So the goal here is to reclaim parts of yourself that you lost or were neglected during the times of these hugely relationships that had a lot of conflict. So what lights you up? What makes you feel alive? These sound like simple questions, and I'm sure a lot of you have gotten these journal prompts and felt annoyed by them. But seriously, stop and think about it. What are 3 things you could do throughout the day that would give you a moment of joy? What does it involve? Does it involve art, nature, music, connecting with friends, creative work, something that will nourish your spirit? These are really, really important. From playing chess to doing a puzzle to listening something that makes you feel better, even if it's 10 minutes in the morning or 10 minutes at night, reconnecting with something that gives you a little bit of joy is going to make you want to continue this process. And reconnecting with people who bring you joy, I can't even talk enough about that. One of the important things we're going to talk about in a minute is replacement people. When you can't rely on the people that you were hoping you would be able to rely on, you need to find others to fill their place. So when you are struggling, finding people who are going through what you're going through, who you can laugh about this with, who can make you feel better, is absolutely key. Okay, next on the list, redefining connection. So healing doesn't obligate you to reconcile on someone else's terms. It really doesn't. Sometimes healing means restructuring the relationship. Sometimes it means having new boundaries, new ways of relating. Sometimes it means deciding not to step back or to step back completely. Connection may look different than it did before, and it's not weaker, it's healthier. So one of the things we talk a lot about, and we talk about a lot in both books, is redefining connection. What does it look like? What kind of relationships do you want to have? Do you want to spend time with people? Do you want to talk on the phone with people? Do you want to see people in person or on Zoom? Are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? Take these all into consideration, because what I don't want you to do is do things that make you feel more uncomfortable. I want you to do things that make you feel better. So, number 5, this is what I was talking about before. Find new people to love. This sounds like a weird thing, but when I was doing all of this work around my own mother-daughter relationship and how to heal and how to get better, one of the things I was advised to do was find new people to love. And it didn't mean I wasn't going to find my love for my mom or everything I felt about her wasn't there. It just meant I needed nurturing women in my life. So you know what I did? I found a lot of nurturing women to bring into my life. I found women who would sponsor me. I found women who would coach me. I found women who would act as mentors. There were women in my life I had known over the years who stepped in and played a bigger role in my life, knowing that I was not speaking to my mom. And at times I asked for help. I went to some of these women who were a little older than me and I said, you know, I have nowhere to go this Thanksgiving. I have nowhere to go this holiday. And it was humbling, but it lent itself to me getting what I needed from these other people. And that's really, really important. Here's the truth. If you ask for help, the people who care about will help you. So find new people to love, find animals to put your love on, find anything that will be grateful for your love. Because everybody deserves love and to be loved. And trust me, somebody wants your love and will be very, very grateful to have it. So find that person instead of the person who's making you feel resentful and bad. So this is kind of the foundation to work on before forgiveness. And why do you want to do this before you worry about forgiveness? Well, because the path of self-healing is kind of more important than the quick path to just forgiving somebody. You want to preserve your dignity and your voice. You don't want to abandon yourself just to make somebody feel better. And to preserve your dignity and voice, you want to feel your feelings. You want to be able to speak your truth. You want to choose what you accept, and that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. Doesn't happen in a week. Sometimes it doesn't happen in months. So give yourself the space and the time to really come to terms with what happened. I mean, the truth is, when my mom and I separated, I was so mad, I didn't think we would ever speak again. And when we reconciled, all I wanted was to have her back in my life. So I promise you, there's certain things that happen if you follow the formula. So you want to reduce your risk of re-traumatizing yourself. Here's the thing. If you just say, oh, I forgive her and let's go back into the same dysfunctional relationship we had, you know what's going to happen? You're going to have the same fights. You're going to go back to exactly the same things you were dealing with because you didn't take the time to think it through and figure out what needed to stop and how to rebuild it. There is nothing worse than re-traumatizing yourself and re-traumatizing other people. And I take accountability for the fact that when we were in our dysfunctional dynamic, we were traumatizing each other. And I write about this in the book. I say, had we known what we were doing to each other, I don't think we would have done it, but we didn't know. So don't do that. Forgiveness too early can mask pain and pressure you to conform. And that's what we're trying not to do here. Next, you will build resilience in this process. I absolutely promise you. It's not a guess. It's not a snake oil offer. I've done this stuff myself. It takes time and it takes work, but you will become more resilient. You will become stronger, and you will be more able to meet what's coming at you head on if you do this foundational work. Next, when you've done it, you will become able to connect with peace, even if the other person hasn't changed. This is, again, the re-traumatizing stuff. So if you've done this work and you're ready to come back and talk to the other person and there's no anger there, you are going to be able to have the conversations that you need without feeling, I mean, you might feel bad, but you're not going to go back into the kind of craziness that was there before. Even if this other person is still acting crazy, hasn't changed at all, if you have found peace, everything will be different. Okay, this was a quickie, so I am going to wrap it up. So to follow up on what I told you at the beginning, the mother-daughter workbook for lasting change dropped yesterday. It is on pre-sales. This is a $40 workbook textbook that we have on sale for $30 for the next 30 days for our community. You can get it on our website, reachoutrecovery.com, in the shop. So we want you to have it. If you have ever had family issues, if you are a mother or daughter who needs a little bit of help or just want a better relationship at all, if you are a therapist, if you are a family wellness person, if you are a coach, if you work in the recovery community, even if you're a sober companion, this can help you and your clients. Use it in your groups. We want you to use it in your groups. We can also teach it to you, but check it out. It's on the website. I will pin it to this. So, to wrap up the whole thing, when you are in crisis with another person, you do not want to focus on just getting to the forgiveness part. You want to work on understanding your own story. You want to work on the proper self-care that will build a healthy foundation for you. You want to reconnect with joy and other people in your life. You want to redefine what connection means to you, because it doesn't have to look the way it looks in the movies. You want to find other people that you can love and who will love you back. And you want to work on preserving your dignity. You want to work on your resilience, and you want to connect to peace. So with that, thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you absolutely health, happiness, recovery, and I promise you, if you want a better relationship with your mother and daughter, you can find it. It just takes a little bit of time and work. All right, see you later.